I'm Tsedey for Tadeusz Magazine, and we're here at the Anacostia Arts Center in Southeast Washington, D.C. for Andreas Kasai's screening of Breathe in the Roots, featuring Christian Joseph, a Brooklyn-based African-American teacher's journey from Addis Ababa to Lalibela on horseback. So what's your name?
Margaret Kamar.
And how did you hear about this film?
So I heard about Breathe in the Roots through my organization, the Young African Professionals Network, YAP DC.
Okay, and what did you think about the film?
I thought it was it's a good film. It was very interesting to see that it was a life through Chris, his experience coming from Brooklyn and his preconception already about Ethiopia and the journey through that. So I thought that was very interesting, and learning about Indaritz's background or why he wanted this film made it even more so valuable experience to it. You know.
What country are you from?
I am from Sierra Leone.
When he came to me, it reminded me of something that had happened to me when I was here in the US at Penn, where I went to school 20-something years ago. And there were these kids on the streets of West Philly having a fight, and they were calling each other names, and one of the names that they called each other was "You Ethiopian." And this was in 91, 92, the early 90s. So, 7 or 8 years after the images of famine and hunger, that brought that were broadcast into homes all over the world. 7 years later, these kids still had this impression of Ethiopia as a hungry place, as a place of famine, and they were using it as an insult to call each other names. And that really stuck with me. So I moved back to Ethiopia after graduating from Penn, and I always felt, when I go back to the States, I want to go back with something that I can present to that community. And I've always felt that media and the use of images is, that's what created this impression of Ethiopia. And that's the way that we're going to get rid of it as well, at least give a more balanced impression. So when Chris came, those kids in West Philly, that's who I was thinking of. I was thinking Chris would be a perfect narrator, storyteller. The journey that he was planning to take, the route that he was taking, the time of year right after the rains, when it's beautiful, green. What a perfect opportunity to show a different side of Ethiopia, something that the cameras that the BBC took to those famine plains did not capture. So that's why I got involved. I'll hand over to Chris and let him tell you why he got involved.
I think it was spiritual. I found that a lot of doors were opening for me in Ethiopia, and I thought that had something to do with the spiritual connection and the spiritual essence that I think was running through me, that I believe was running through me. And I think that also passed through Andreas, and that is why it was so kind of easy for me to gain support for a journey such as this. That's why I got involved. If there are any questions that you would like to ask me, please feel free. I will say that I think that I am an anti-oppression advocate. So in any country and in any system that I have ever been a part of, I have tried to impact in some way that would help the marginalized people in that community. So if that was Ethiopia, or if we're thinking in terms of Africa, my mission in trying to use my pilgrimage to change images about Ethiopia is rooted in empowering African people. It's rooted in empowering Ethiopian people to see the nation differently, for people who haven't been to Ethiopia to see Africa and to see Ethiopia in a different light. And that's where my heart is with all of this.
I plan to visit Lalibela, but not with a horse.
The most dangerous thing I experienced, falling into hot springs. The hot springs was the most dangerous.
Falling in? Where are we talking about?
This was near Wildea.
Huh?
You know Wildea?
Wildea, yeah.
It's near Wildea. I was entering Wildea. There are hot springs around that area. It's about 25 kilometers from Wildea. And I was taking my horse to drink. He was going to drink some water. And after he finished, we were walking back over this grassy area. And the ground just disappeared, basically. The ground.
Like mudslide?
Mudslide.
Or is it quicksand?
It's closer to quicksand, but it was mud. So it wasn't sandy, it was mud. It was muddy and rocky, and so we were walking, and then 1 second the floor was there, and the next second the floor was gone, and we were I was covered up to mud up to here.
How did you get out?
So I was able to pull myself out, but I couldn't pull the horse out. So there were two people that came to help me pull him out. I had to go back into the mud, kind of clear out the mud from his legs so he could move. Once I cleared that out, I would have to push him, and they would pull him. So they were pulling him out, and I was pushing him up, and eventually he got free. That's what happened.
What's your name?
Ezra.
Ezra, are you from DC area?
I'm from Virginia.
So tell me, what did you think of the movie?
I think about like a lot of different kind of like animals and like lots of different kind of like Africa.
What do you think about the horses?
I was thinking about when I grow up, I want to ride a horse, and when I grow up, I want to be a police that rides a horse, and yeah.
Where, here or in Ethiopia?
In Virginia.
I'm here with Andreas Kasai, and I just wanted to know, what did you think of the screening?
Well, we were very happy about the turnout and the response, the reaction from people. It's an affirmation of the work that we've been doing. We put a lot of heart, a lot of efforts into it, and to see that people enjoyed it and appreciated it, yeah, very happy.
Okay, so tell me, when you say it's a work in progress, what are your, some goals and kind of what direction do you want to take it in now?
Well, there's several things that we are working on. One is a TV broadcast version. So we need to squeeze it down to about a 50-something minute version. So we need to clean it up there. There's a few tweaks here and there, and eventually we want to have it in the film festival circuit. And so yeah, just getting it to that level.
Okay, and in terms of like you're taking it on the road, are there going to be more cities? Like, should other cities be expecting a screening of Breathe in the Roots?
Absolutely. I mean, our plan, our hope, our dream is to get this shown across the United States, and then also in the Caribbean and back home in Ethiopia, different African countries. I think the message that we're trying to convey with this resonates globally. So ultimately, that is the plan. But in the immediate future, our plan is to get it into different venues like this in the DMV, so college campuses, different theaters, and then to take it to Philadelphia. That's where I went to school. That's where my inspiration to get involved in this project came from, to really get it back to those communities that had this warped image of Ethiopia impressed upon them, and to show this film as a way of of correcting that impression. And then to New York. That's where Chris is from. There's a very important audience there for us. And from there on to wherever there's interest, absolutely.
Foster discussions about what it means to be African, what it means to be at home. Okay, so what does it mean to appropriate African culture? There may be some people that feel that because I am born in America, that I don't have a right to be in Ethiopia and to be doing these kinds of things, which would foster a pretty good dialogue between Africans and African Americans or Caribbean Americans also, to start analyzing what is home and where we come from, who we are, and what does it mean to go back to where we come from and how that looks, and how that sits inside of all of us here, how that sits inside of me.
There's one thing that you hope that everyone walks away with. What is that one thing?
Wow. That's kind of difficult. I think that I would want people to question their assumptions about Africa. I think that is the most important thing. So this documentary focuses on Ethiopia, but if there was one thing that I wanted people to come away from, it is to question their perceptions about what they have been told that Africa is, and what they have gotten used to seeing from Africa. Question it, and to maybe have a change, some sort of a change in their perceptions. That's the best that I can do.
The question is for you, Chris. How did this experience impact your life and what you went on to do and what you're doing now?
I would say that there was an intention of how this would impact me. I thought that I would, being in Ethiopia in general, I thought it would make me stronger as a human being. I would say that since I've come back here, I'm really astounded as to how I'm received in this society. I have made bounds and leaps since I've come here. When I'm in classes or when I'm in meetings with people who I would normally cower to, I kind of dominate those spaces. And in my opinion, it has to do with a certain level of spiritual confidence in like who I am and where I come from and the history of my people, and that no matter what body it is that's in front of me, you cannot tell me what the fact is anymore. So at this point, I'm a master's student. I am designing the curriculum for my school. I teach the professors at my school. I teach the dean. There are a number of groundbreaking things that I've done at that university that, in my opinion, I wouldn't have been able to do had I not gained the empowerment that I experienced through going through this journey and through being in Ethiopia in general. I thank God for that every day. And I feel very blessed.
What were the things that, what were the questions, in there that really kind of hit you the most?
From the audience, well, when you ask, okay, now that you're asking me, one of the questions that came to mind was the question about the budget, and that is something that, to be honest, I've not been very good at keeping an accounting of. I know that I know the major ticket items, but when you really cost it out, it runs up, So that was, and something that I need to work on now as well. If we're going to do a little bit more work to finalize it, then we need to be a lot stronger with our budgeting, with the management of the film production process. And then the other part was the question that was for Chris about how this project has impacted his life, and I thought it was what he had to say was extremely powerful. That coming to Ethiopia, he now credits his experience in Ethiopia with empowering him to stand up, to be forthright, to be amongst people within his own country in a very different way, and in a very confident way, in a way that's not submissive or subservient, but in a very confident, commanding manner. And he was saying that his experience in Ethiopia has elevated him to that position, has given him that self-confidence, that strength, to the point where now, as a master's student, he is teaching professors at Columbia University. That's pretty powerful.
Were there any bloopers that
Bloopers?
that I mean, obviously it didn't make it to the final cut, but things that
Yeah, I mean, we've had.
I mean, the ones that you think you want to share anyway.
Let me just put it this way: we filmed for over 20 days on the road, and that's at least 2-3 hours of footage every single day. So that's like 60. When you multiply that by about 20 days of filming, that's about 60 hours of footage. From 60 hours, we are down to 1 hour and I don't know, 10 minutes. So you know that there's a lot that we have not put in there. And yes, there were funny moments, but I think the most important moments are there. It was not a comedy. We're not working on it.
Well, I got to tell you, it was quite entertaining.
One of my favorite moments in this film, and it just came to my mind now as we were talking about this, was that moment with the white guy in his shorts walking across the screen, and he's like, "Are you a singer?" And he's like, "Oh no, you're not that either." And it's true, why does an African American traveling outside their country have to be? Why can't they just be a regular person? And I think that's one of the messages also coming from here, is that you can, people should not stereotype.
Oh yeah, definitely, but they do. Consider what kind of progress needs to happen with this film to make it transition from a work in progress to a complete piece.
So I think making the film very concise would be an important thing. I think maybe having some more scholars discuss certain aspects of Ethiopia that I wasn't able to touch on.
When you go back to Brooklyn, what are the memories that come back to you about Ethiopia?
I'm gonna be digging into my soul with that. That's a lot for me. I miss my horse. I mean, I'll leave it at that.